In this lecture, we will discuss the topic of client communications and counseling. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to discuss components of interpersonal communication, apply active listening, interpret nonverbal behaviors, and select appropriate communication and basic counseling skills for use with clients. CFP Financial Planning Practice Standard 400-3 states, the financial planning practitioner shall communicate the recommendation or recommendations in a manner and to an extent reasonably necessary to assist the client in making an informed decision. We must always remember that our clients are in charge and need to make their own implementation decisions. However, our ability to forge relationships and communicate recommendations in an understandable and personalized manner will have a tremendous impact on that client's ultimate decision. Communication is the exchange of information from an encoder to a recipient, which in the financial planning data gathering efforts means from the client to the planner. The message can be delivered in written or verbal format. The recipient's interpretation of the message is derived from what is said and how it is said, but there are also many other issues that play a major role in the meaning, including sociological and cultural backgrounds. The client-planner relationship itself will impact how messages are transmitted. Important communication skill sets that will improve the financial planner's ability to relate with and understand the client are establishing rapport, listening with a purpose, effective questioning, encouraging storytelling, recognizing nonverbal messages, and identifying and responding to resistance. Let's examine these skills in a little more detail. Rapport between the planner and client is necessary in order for an in-depth conversation to take place. After all, the client doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Attentiveness during the client meeting is important. Webster Dictionary defines attentiveness as thinking about or watching something carefully and concern about the needs of others. Techniques that demonstrate your attentiveness to the client include showing empathy, supporting what is said, supporting and encouraging the client to continue sharing, confirming your concern with nonverbal consistencies, such as maintaining eye contact and an open posture, leaning forward and maybe affirmative head nods, and mirroring, which is the communication technique of matching the client's physical posture, verbal style, and verbal pace. There are different levels of listening. As a passive recipient, the communication is primarily one way. The encoder delivers the message and you passively receive it. In this passive listening state, you may or may not be totally engaged or focused. You're essentially just hearing or reading the words. Active listening is a two-way exchange. Here you're listening to gain information. You're focused in order to understand the words, and you're actively trying to surmise the meaning behind what is said. In a conversation, you're intently engaged in the verbal and the nonverbal message of the encoder, and you provide feedback. This feedback could be verbal, nonverbal, or a combination of the two. In reading a book, active listening or active reading might infer writing in the margins, underlining sentences, taking notes, or highlighting passages. Clearly, one of the top traits of successful financial planning professionals is the ability to actively listen. Questioning allows us to discover client information, formulate meaning, and confirm what we think we understand. Two types of questions that you'll use are closed-end questions and open-ended questions. A closed-end question might be answered by the recipient in just one word. For example, you might ask the client, "Is that correct?" Or, "Are you going on vacation this year?" The responses to those questions would clarify a fact. However, the closed-end question could be a lead-in to a series of open-ended questions. The open-ended question is intended to produce a more thoughtful client response. You might ask, "How does that make you feel?" Or, "What would have to happen in this planning engagement for you to feel a year from now like it was worthwhile?" The response helps you understand. It helps you develop a deeper understanding. During a FPA convention presentation called A Wealth of Stories, Christina Baldwin shared the following words: "Words are how we think, story is how we relate." Encourage clients to tell their stories. What memorable experiences with money did they have as a child or as an adult? What did they learn about money from their parents or their grandparents? Are those lessons still impacting their relationship with money today? These stories will tell you a lot about their values, their beliefs, their attitudes that are below the surface but certainly drive behavior. You might also inquire about their mentors. Was there a person in their life that really had a lasting effect? What was that relationship like? Mentors can have a tremendous influence in shaping value systems. But storytelling is not just a one-way street. Share some of your stories with clients. Consider using stories to teach learning points about money, investments, or financial planning. Relate stories about how a financial mindset helped you, or for that matter, prevented you from achieving a financial objective. Offer success stories about other people you know or have heard about. Quoting author and certified financial planner Vern Hayden, whether you are giving a speech or in discussion, clients will likely remember a story you tell rather than a quantitative point. Research suggests that nonverbal communications is more important than words when it comes to understanding behavior. 5 elements of nonverbal communication are listed on the slide. Pay attention to the client's facial expressions, such as smiles or frowns, and notice if the client maintains eye contact or they look away. Evaluate their body posture and positioning. Is the client leaning forward or leaning back? Are the arms positioned naturally at the side or across the chest? Do any of the hand or leg gestures convey a message about being agitated or anxious? Did the tone, the volume, or pace of the client's voice change? There's a lot of information on the subject of nonverbal communications, and you will be well served by researching it further. At some point in your planning work, you're going to encounter client resistance. This slide lists several client responses or tells that let you know that something's not right. These include lack of attention, reluctance or lack of a response, changing the subject or an interruption, a disagreement or pessimistic outlook, unwillingness to consider an alternative, and questions that hint at some concern. Courtney Pullen, in the article The Art of Connection, shares a story about a client that kept asking the same question, even after repeated attempts by the author to answer it. Finally, the author said, "There must be something that you really care about that I'm not adequately addressing." That response opened the door for the client to express their underlying concern. There are numerous ways to respond to resistance. However, 4 techniques are: listen more carefully, check in more often, use relevant stories, metaphors, and analogies to connect, and keep reconnecting to those client goals. Resistance needs to be addressed and discussed before you move forward. There are several different ways to connect with your client and to stay in contact. Periodic reviews and educational seminars are excellent vehicles for ongoing face-to-face contact. Personal phone calls or conference calls are alternatives that some clients prefer. Others may prefer personal emails or handwritten notes. Discover your client's preferred method of communication and adapt it into your client contact routine. Did you know that many business people spend more time trying to get new clients than in servicing and keeping existing ones? Part of your responsibility is to nurture the client-planner relationship, that relationship you have with your existing clients. You do that by keeping your clients informed, taking steps to continue the client's knowledge about financial planning, and making sure their plan stays in tune with their changing circumstances. Put in effort, be proactive, and work at nurturing the relationship. We can learn a lot from the field of counseling. Basic counseling techniques that can be effectively integrated into your client work include creating rapport and showing attentiveness, using open-ended questioning, restating what was said, paraphrasing what you heard, summarizing the discussion, reflecting client feelings, and observing nonverbal communication. We've already addressed many of these micro skills earlier in this discussion, but let's focus on those that we haven't. 4 effective counseling techniques are repeating words or phrases, paraphrasing what you heard, summarizing the essence of the conversation, and identifying and reflecting the client emotion. This ongoing feedback demonstrates that you're fully engaged. It will prompt the client to confirm or correct the meaning of the message. It will expand the depth of the conversation and let the client know that you heard them and that you now have an accurate message. Dennis Jaffrey and James Grubman succinctly frame the importance of planner-client communication when they wrote, "The most effective and successful advisors in the industry are ones who can truly listen, build trust, interview effectively, make the client feel understood, and manage the delicate issues money can evolve." Truly, the art of financial planning, our ability to develop relationships, engage in meaningful conversations with clients, and collaborate with other professionals is incredibly important for successful planning. In this lesson, you learned about components of interpersonal communication, nonverbal behaviors, active listening, and basic counseling skills for use with clients.